The Electric Rodeo is an adult toy megastore podcast about sex, toys, pleasure, and relationships.
It contains adult themes, adult language, and probably too much information about our sex lives.
Sorry, Mum. Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to the Electric Rodeo. I'm your host, Emma Hewitt.
And my name's an anagram for anus ball hat. Tash Ball. Told you it was a good one.
Is it actually anus ball hat?
There's a website you can put your name into or anything, and it works out every single different version of things. So I was clearing out my notes app the other day, and George and I once went through it, like a portion of it, because there's so many obviously different ways that it can be. And we wrote them down. But obviously, Natasha Ball being my full name, I can spell anal, anus, slut. So there's some really good ones in there.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yeah.
That is good stuff.
Yeah.
Good quality content.
I was like, oh, this is a perfect intro.
I'm going to do it as soon as we wrap this.
It's really fun.
Yeah. My next intro will be whatever my skankiest name is.
Yours is hard because you've got a lot of double consonants in your name.
I got some weird shit.
2 M's,
like a
2
W.
T's. Yeah, what are we going to do with that?
I don't know. Wank. Wank.
Where's the K coming from?
I don't know. I'll join in with other people's names.
Sure.
We're excited. We're just going to dive in today.
Yeah.
Because we've got a really fun episode.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be slightly different. I'm going to interview Tash.
Wow. Yes, we had a very cool guest we wanted to get on for this week, but scheduling didn't quite work out. She'll get mentioned during the episode anyways, for the purposes of her content. But we're chatting about ethical non-monogamy today, which is something that I obviously participate in and I find very exciting and interesting. So, yeah, I guess I'm in the expert seat.
You are.
Take it with a grain of salt.
I hope that you are prepped and ready.
I am.
And I hope, audience, that you are prepped and ready, because you might want to take some notes for this if this is something that you have thought about before.
Yeah.
Because the world is changing. The world, let's get philosophical. The world is changing, and it seems like there are lots more conversations around this topic. There is a lot more openness to it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very good thing. I think that it's nice that we're kind of moving into a situation where it's not so structured. You don't have to be a man and a woman and just a man and a woman and
having
nothing else.
Babies.
Yeah, like fine. Absolutely fine.
Love that for you.
If that's what you want.
If that's your dream, we respect it.
Yeah. I mean, that's my dream currently.
Yeah.
So we won't drag that. That's a good dream. But it's very nice that there are alternatives to this.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about the world, parts of the world getting more progressive, is rethinking relationship structures and what that looks like, and everyone actually getting an opportunity to challenge the norm on that.
Yeah.
And actually, you can design a relationship structure that works for you. And one thing I want to say is that we're going to be talking about ethical non-monogamy kind of from my lens. I obviously am going to talk about structures that, I don't participate in, but I think it's important to remember it's coming from my perspective, which is limited in the grand scheme of things, because as you're about to learn, there's so many different umbrellas and branches that things can go down. So if it's something that interests you, we're going to chat about some resources and things like that you can look at. But this is just going to be a bit about my relationship, how I got into it, XYZ, some general information about the topic.
An absolute grilling,
yeah. I am. Somehow this feels more revealing than talking about fucking a toilet. And the last thing before we actually get into it, use code RODEO10 adulttimegastore.co.nz because this isn't really going to be about toys this episode, but hey, they're still there and they're still 10% off if you use that code.
Yeah,
so
get in there. So let's just dive on into it. So Tash, my angel.
Hi.
What does ethical non-monogamy mean?
Great question.
Thank you.
Great place to start.
Yeah.
Ethical non-monogamy is the kind of overarching umbrella term for non-monogamous relationships that are not monogamous.
Yeah.
So monogamous means you are in a relationship with one person and that's it. So non-monogamy means you are in a relationship with more than one person, and those relationships can kind of be anywhere along the spectrum.
Yeah.
The ethical comes into play because the relationships you're having, everyone is consenting to those. Everyone is aware and enthusiastically participating in the structure of the relationships. Obviously, we touched on it in the fantasies episode. A example of non-monogamy that's not ethical is just cheating.
Yeah.
So one is
not what we're discussing today.
Yes, no. So we are doing ethical or consensual non-monogamy. And so that's kind of the overarching term. And then you can kind of split, I mean, again, in lots of different directions, but kind of the next two from there is polyamory is a big one that people will have heard of. Polyamory is specifically about having multiple developed real romantic relationships.
Right, yeah.
So this is not quite like the other one, which is just kind of open relationships.
Yeah.
So I fall under the kind of open relationship spectrum. So I have a primary partner, George. You've all heard of him. We all love him.
Georgie boy.
Yes. And our relationship, we have the capacity to have casual relationships with other people.
Okay.
We are not polyamorous, so I would not just go out and get another boyfriend.
Right.
That's kind of the general gist. And then it really, again, just like spirals down from there. With polyamory, there is a lot of different structures. Some of them you might have heard of, thruples, quads.
Yeah.
But then, on the flip side of that, on the ethical non-monogamy open relationship side, you've got swingers. So you know what I mean? Like they're very distinctive. Right. One is like fleshed out, proper romantic relationships. The other one is just a bit more casual.
And do you know what's really cute?
What?
The other night when Jay and I went and had Valentine's Day at Space Place, and it was really, really cute, and they put on this little show. But under the ticket selections that you could order, it was like couple, throuple, or quad.
Aww.
And I was like, that's so cool.
Very progressive.
I know, I'd never seen that before. And I was like, at Space Place of all places. But then we got there and the whole vibe was like very gay, which I loved.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just everyone that was working there just seemed very queer.
You said they were pouring very large glasses of wine.
They were pouring amazingly large glasses of wine.
That's so cute.
I know, it was delightful. Anyway, I just thought that was really cute. So what do you and George call yourself? So you call yourself open, like in an open relationship?
Yeah, so George and I would put E&M on our dating profiles, so the acronym for ethical non-monogamy. Sometimes I like to say we're best friends with benefits.
That's really cute.
I think that's quite fun. But yeah, he's my primary partner, so we are in a long-term, it's been almost 5 years, serious, committed relationship. And then it's kind of ever-evolving, our one, because neither of us have been open before, so it's very much an ever-changing thing, but essentially we have the capacity to have casual relationships outside of our relationship. So for George, he's more just kind of interested in like casual sexual stuff. He doesn't want to have to juggle like another relationship. He's not interested in that, whereas I need a bit more connection with people. I do have like some like casual, very casual, like just sex type stuff. But I also like to like kind of date and stuff like that. But again, like the end goal is not a relationship. I'm very open and honest about this on like dating apps I'm on. I'm not dating to find another relationship. It's more just an experience thing.
Yeah, right.
And so that's kind of one of the like first points of like rethinking what romantic relationships can look like for you. Like there doesn't have to be an end goal. It doesn't have to be get married, have babies.
Yeah.
Like you can just have these beautiful connections and experiences with people and let that be what it is. That's
just
my...
to fulfill your life, right? Like just to like add that happiness and that joy and the comfort of being with other people into your life without like this end goal of like, okay, well, we need to buy a house and have kids, and that's like the
scary
end.
Stuff.
Yeah, right? I know.
How non-committal of me.
Have you discussed like what happens if one of you ends up like forming a really strong attachment to someone else? Like, are you in a situation where you would kind of play that out, or do you think that if one of you got to that point, then you would cut it off with that other person to protect your own relationship, if you know what I mean?
This opens up like an interesting discussion point in the community, which is vetoing power. So it's about having the power to veto people that you're primary partner is dating.
Right.
It's
powerful
contentious.
shit.
We don't have that.
Okay.
So we are autonomous adults.
Yeah.
And you can set boundaries, but you can't restrict other people. So, if there were to be an issue, you can kind of say, hey, I'm not really comfortable if you're doing this. It's kind of up to you to remove yourself from the situation. We're not in the kind of relationship where it's, I could be like, I don't like that you're dating this person, so exit with them, because that's not ethical. Their relationship is their relationship. You know what I mean? It's not I shouldn't have the power to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of, would we cut things off if things got to a certain point? I've had feelings for other people, and it's still just been like a casual dating thing. We have discussed, like, I think around maybe, because we've been open for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah.
So maybe around a year ago, when we were having one of our like little check-in conversations, and I was kind of seeing someone that I had feelings for, we were talking about things, and George was like, I don't like the idea of you taking someone else to family dinner. And I wasn't trying to. Right. It was just that sort of thing. So at that point in time, he was not comfortable, it was with that sort of thing developing to that point. Whereas now we kind of just have very light, casual, hypothetical conversations about things. And so he's been casually sleeping with someone, and I've said, like, are you developing any feelings there? Like, if you were to develop feelings for her, what would you do? Would you want to cut it off, or would you come to me, and would you want to talk about like starting to date them? So I am really open to it because I am the one who kind of needs a bit more, and I am very experimental. So I'm really open to the idea of just kind of like seeing where things go. And if he wanted to like broaden what his relationships outside of our relationship look like, I would be open to that. But at the end of the day, it's just about having those conversations and setting the boundaries where you're both comfortable with them. Yeah. So yeah.
Just to go back, you mentioned something around like boundaries.
Yeah.
Have you set out boundaries around people that you can and can't sleep with? Like, is it like no mutual friends? Are there rules that you've got in place around that?
So initially, like, this is hilarious. We did the first boundary with regards to this sort of thing that we set was like no exes. For obvious reasons. Yeah. And I have some like exes where it's like they weren't serious relationships. So we kind of set a rule where it's like no serious exes where there was like some drama or a breakup or XYZ. If there's someone that you've previously like dabbled with that you're interested in, there needs to be a conversation prior to that. Normally, if it's just like George meets someone on Tinder, I don't need to vet them. If he's going to meet someone, I'm like, cool. But if it were to be someone who he's like previously fraternized with, it would be a conversation. In regards to friends, like we didn't set a hard veto. He did joke about it. He loves to joke about wanting to fuck my friend. And at first I was like, yeah, whatever, power to you, whatever. Yeah. But then as time's gone on, like if we're having like drinks or something and he'll be like joke about wanting to like hit on my friends, I'm like, I don't want you to like be sleazy and hit on my friends. Yeah. Like I don't want my friends to be like, Tasha's boyfriend's trying to fuck me. So
stop ruining the group dinners.
Yeah, truly. No, not at all. He's not like that at all. He's very chill. Yeah. He's very reserved. So yeah, there's no like rules around that, but I think we both know with friends or anyone that we kind of like have a mutual thing with or exes, like we both know that there would need to be a conversation there. Yeah.
So do you talk to each other before, like how much information do you give each other? Well, about like the sex, but also like if they're going on dates and stuff, how much do you want to know and how much do you actually discuss?
So I'm the kind of person where I want to know everything, but you have to also respect the privacy of like him and his other partners. Yeah, like true. Especially the privacy of the third person. Like they might not be comfortable with him coming home to his girlfriend and like saying all the stuff they did. So I always kind of want to know like how things are going, blah, blah, blah. But like in terms of the details of their sex, even though I would be perfectly fine hearing about it, I don't ask because that's not really my right. George does not have as many questions as I do. Like I'm the talker in the relationship, if that hasn't made itself abundantly clear. I'm the talker.
The one with the podcast? No, I would never have guessed.
Yeah. In regards to dating, if you're going to see someone or anything, you just need to be like, hey, I'm going to go do this. We're not super like hard on the schedules because it all is quite casual. So, and we don't, typically I have more of a social life than he does. So typically it's just like, unless we have plans to do something that evening, he could message me on the day and be like, hey, I've been talking to someone and I'm going to go over to their place tonight. I'd just be like, cool. So he's not asking for permission, but he will let me know. And it was really interesting. I think there's only been one time where he was like, can I go to blah, blah, blah's place tonight? It was a previous like casual partner of his. And I was like, no, because I was just feeling a bit like emotionally needy that evening. Nothing to do with them. Like I just kind of wanted him around and I was like, no. And then I was like, oh no, yes. Because I mean, it was like, oh, I don't like that I just told him no. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, I had to think and I was like, I need to express myself properly here. And I was like, hey, actually, I'm kind of like feeling a bit emotional tonight and I actually want you here with me. Is that okay? And that was an interesting thing to like work through because I'm normally just quite breezy with this sort of thing. So saying no felt really weird.
Interesting though, like that's just, you're so emotionally stable in yourself, I think. Because even the fact that you like just checked yourself within like a few minutes of saying it is pretty nuts. Like I would not do that. I would think about it later and I would probably regret it, but I would still probably enforce like, I'm needy, come to me.
Well, yeah, I kind of like, thought on it in like a 5-10 minute period and then was like, no, I do kind of want you to stay here. And then I think we only actually had like a proper conversation about it. I don't remember. This was like around a year ago maybe. It would have been like within like a week later that we actually had a conversation and he expressed that he was frustrated that I was just a bit flip-floppy and I was like, look, I absolutely hear you. For me, that was the first time I'd actually felt the need to say, no, I need you here with me tonight, and that felt really weird for me. Just, you just gotta chat about shit. It's a lot of talking, which I'm great at as well.
You are. You're a good communicator. I mean, but that's got to be good for all communication, right? Because you have to chat about shit because you need to check in with each other probably more frequently than you would if you were just in a monogamous relationship. Like it's got to be building those skills. Yeah,
that's been one of the benefits that I found even when we initially opened up and neither of us were actually like, we didn't have any like sexual relationships outside of our relationship. We're just both quite low maintenance, and when we were monogamous we didn't have these check-ins. And I think that that's actually been the biggest benefit, like actually realizing that it's good to even schedule like these kind of conversations where you check in about the relationship. And I think that that's something that even like monogamous couples can take on board, like just having those open conversations and checking in on your relationship. Even if you're not having a discussion about relationships outside of yours, you can still, talk about sex, talk about how you're feeling, talk about any issues that you've been having or like stuff that you've been too scared to bring up. Like just having that open forum to have those discussions is like a really key thing. Yeah, and it's good to like actually set aside a time for that as well. Yeah. Because if you need to both be in a good headspace, I think, to have those conversations as well. Because it's even like if one of you is like feeling a little bit extra emotional of a day or a bit needy and stuff, it can completely change the dynamic of that conversation as well. You want to be having the conversation not off the back of like a meltdown.
Or a problem or something like that, like you need to do it when you're both on like steady, like solid ground with each other. I reckon.
That's what happens a lot of the time. People keep things to themselves because even within the relationship they think that it's small, or maybe their partner hasn't reacted like well to things previously and they let them boil up and then spill over. Whereas if you're kind of scheduling these like conversations, or even just not even like fully scheduling, and what I mean, just being like, hey, let's have a chat about things this Thursday or whatever on your date nights. Like that's kind of how we ended up getting into it. Like when we first started discussing opening our relationship in theory, it was when we were out on a date night. Because it's just you one-on-one. Like you've agreed to spend quality time together, have a nice little feed and like talk about your relationship.
That's a good move. On that, how did things happen when you first opened things up? Like who brought it up? What was the reason? What was like the feelings beforehand that suggested that maybe that's like a relationship structure that the two of you could look at?
So I realised that I was queer about a year into our relationship. It was during the level 3 lockdowns and he was a delivery driver. So the day that I like had the epiphany. Because looking back, it was very obvious that I was bi my whole life. He was out working and I was at home still in lockdown, and I had an edible, and I just started having all these very deep, profound thoughts about how I'm like an oppressed queer child because I've just told myself I've never kissed a woman, so therefore how could I possibly know? Aww. And I realised that, and then had a big cry, and then he walked in the room and I was crying and was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, I'm gay. And his immediate thing was like, are you wanting to like experiment? Because like, you know, we don't have to break up, it's okay. And I was like, no, like that was never a thing for me. But because of that moment, I then was like, we were at this dinner and I was like, so you know, you would be open to me experimenting with other women? And he was like, yep, if you want to do that for your sexuality. And I was like, what about men? And he was like, not on board with that. And I was like, okay, I think we should talk about this again in a few months' time. Yeah. I think it is kind of invalidating of my sexuality if you care about me sleeping with men but not women. Yeah. So you ruminate on that and I'll think about it, and then we'll kind of talk about it again. And then it was over the course of a year, we would just have these hypothetical conversations about what it would look like if we entered, you know, like into an open relationship. So initially it was, you know, if I'm out clubbing, I can make out with someone. That's fine. We were doing that for a while. Yeah. And then it just got to a point where I started having feelings for a friend of mine. Yeah. And I went to him and I said, so we've talked about like I could go and have sex with someone and that's a one night stand. What if I wanted to have like an ongoing sexual relationship, like friends with benefits or something casual? And he was like, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. And then I was like, that's fine, but we hadn't really set a boundary. Like it was just kind of like, if it happens, it happens. Right. And I think that's one thing that I want to warn people to do. Like, yes, feel things out, but like just be aware that if your partner says like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm potentially open to this, and then you do that without actually like discussing all of the boundaries, it might not necessarily go well. Yeah. And that's not the end of the world. Yeah. You know, like that doesn't have to be the end of everything. You can take that as a lesson and then actually sit there and like set your boundaries. Yeah.
I know of multiple friends who have been in relationships where things like attempts at opening up happened the wrong way. Yeah. And like multiple people where it started with one of them cheating on the other person. Oh, no. And then being like, well, what if to like save this, we just open the relationship? No, it's just like, no, you've done it. It's all backwards. Like the trust is gone, doll. Like you got to, if you are about to open your relationship, you have to trust each other so much and be like solid and, you know, like very happy and strong in your sense of self and your sense of self within the relationship. Yeah. And so I'm just like, guys, please stop doing that to each other.
Opening the relationship is the same as having a threesome or having a baby. Doing those things is not going to save your relationship if it's falling apart. Yeah, yeah. And like I spent a lot of time on Reddit forums, specific like E&M ones, earlier on, and the amount of times that people will be like, my husband came out to me as polyamorous and said he's had a girlfriend for 2 years, and so I'm trying to adjust to this lifestyle, but like I just can't get on board. What can I do? And everyone's like, first of all, it's not a sexuality. Like, you don't come out as polyamorous. Your husband has been cheating on you and you're being way too nice about it. So those stories just break my heart because it's like, don't do that to yourself just because you want to stay with someone. Yeah.
And because it's also a little bit manipulative as well.
So manipulative.
Like, you know, like to be like, oh, but I'm polyamorous, so I'm allowed to do that. It's just like, no, you're fucking not. It's cheating on someone. That's not being in an open relationship if only one of you knows about it, you know?
And that's where you come back to ethical non-monogamy. Yeah. There's nothing ethical about cheating on your partner and then saying, well, let's just do this full time. You're cool with that, right?
Yeah, because it's the same group of people that are probably like, actually, I want to do it, but I'm not that keen if you do.
And that's the other thing, the amount of times, this is like a classic story. My husband and I weren't having sex and he wanted to open the relationship. I wasn't that keen on it, but I agreed to it because I really wanted to save the relationship. And then the woman goes out, gets dates very easily because she's a woman, and the man then struggles to get dates because it is hard for like men in open relationships dating. We'll get into that. And then wants to close the relationship because he wasn't viewing her in a sexual sense, like that sort of part of their relationship had died, and he's shocked that she's doing real well and he's not getting any, and he tries to close the relationship. That happens all the fucking time. And it's just like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, no. And this is your own fault, to be fair.
Yeah, you got to be looking out for both people in the relationship.
Yeah. It's not just a one-sided thing. It's very much has to be the two of you together in this.
Yeah.
So how does dating look different when you're in an open relationship versus when you're in a monogamous relationship? Well, you know, like you're looking for a singular person to date, you know, like you're not dating anyone else at the same time. Because even just talking about that, I was like, if I saw a guy on a dating app saying that he was in an open relationship, I'd be like, are you though?
Yeah, this is a thing. Some people will actually get people to like prove it. They'll be like, prove it. Send me a video of your wife saying that she's cool with it. And I think that's fair enough if you want to check, because some people will lie.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of how it looks different, I mean, you've got to, I think the number one thing is obviously having it in your bio. Don't like bring it up like on the first day and be like, oh, by the way, I have a whole girlfriend at home.
Yeah.
People won't be into that. But other than that, like, I just find I'm not really on apps at the moment. I don't like dating apps. I did them, I think, because we did open the relationship and I was like, well, I could be dating. But the thing is, the cool thing about being in an open relationship is you don't have to be actively dating.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like, I can if I want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would find that I would get questions about it. I would also end up dating or like talking to other ethically non-monogamous people. I will say the problem with being E&M and partnered and trying to date other people who are E&M and partnered, there is normally nowhere to go because everyone's partners are at home and most people don't want their partner having sex in their house while they're there.
True. Okay, so you need to start making the hotel room budget.
Yes.
You and George,
There's
you
a
each
hotel
put
budget.
in every week and you can pull out, oh no, because I would just want to go with George though, right? Like you would just be like, well, we've got this big hotel budget. Let's go and stay at the hotel for the fucking weekend.
Just has a very good luck with, well, actually, no. He like, half the time he'd be like, oh, I matched with this girl and she's really cute, but she lives in the hut. So yeah, it has its like, you know, little logistical complications, but I think ultimately, like, especially if it's like a casual thing, most people on dating apps are quite casual.
Yeah.
You know, not a lot of people are actually looking for serious stuff.
Yeah.
So it works quite well with the general stage that dating apps in society are at, which isn't great, but it works.
Yeah. I hear lots of jokes about non-monogamous people needing really good Google calendars. You and George, and I don't mean for you to take this the wrong way, you do not seem like Google Calendar kind of people.
No.
How do you deal, or is things just so casual that that's just not a big issue for you? Like you don't struggle to find time for each other and for like other partners or play partners?
Yeah, the Google Calendar meme is very much more to do with polyamory.
Okay.
Like that's if you have, you know, if you're in one
true.
relationship, imagine if you were managing two relationships and
I don't have the time.
You know, exactly, you don't have the time. So you would have to schedule like very seriously. Or if you're a polyamorous person with lots of connections, you know, there's different groupings. Your girlfriend has two boyfriends and then your boyfriend has another girlfriend and they have a boyfriend. That would be called a polycule.
Yeah.
So if you're in a polycule, you got to definitely like work around a lot of people's. Yeah, because like it's you and one other person, but also them and two other people. So like it just broadens. Whereas like we're not polyamorous. So and it's much more casual. It's just kind of like, hey, come over tonight.
Yeah. Okay. That
or
makes
like,
it a bit easier.
I'm going on a date tonight, and it's very chill.
Yeah. I guess it helps you live with each other as well. So it's not like you live separately. So you're. You know, when you're at home, you're together.
Yeah.
You know?
We do try to intentionally, not schedule, we're not scheduling people. We do try to intentionally set time to spend time together.
Yeah.
Like this week, I, was going to the gym Monday and Wednesday, and then on Thursday we had our tying class, and then on Friday I have a dinner. So I was like, Tuesday is the only day this week where we will actually have time.
Yeah.
To spend together. So we'll try to do things like that because especially like, again, even in a monogamous relationship, when you're living together, it's very easy to like get into like flatmate zone.
Yeah,
so you gotta just do those little intentional things to keep it going well.
Yeah, keep the connection together, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about jealousy. I think this is probably like the biggest thing that like monogamous people were like, oh no, I couldn't because I would get jealous.
Totally.
You know, and that's fair. Monogamy is not for everyone, just as non-monogamy is not for everyone as well.
They're both incredibly valid.
Yeah. So my question is, have you experienced jealousy? And like, is that something that has come up in your relationship, or has George experienced jealousy, or do you just have a better way of dealing with it than other people do?
I have not experienced jealousy towards George and his other partners. I do think the fact that it is just quite one-dimensional is a big part of that. I know that he's, he'll chat with them and have sex with them and they're not going on dates. There's not much more to it. So I definitely think I have the capacity for jealousy. I've experienced jealousy with other open people that I've dated.
Right.
So I think the main thing is that you can still be open and experience jealousy. It's just about how you manage it. You just can't project that onto other people and make it their problem. You can talk about it. You can say, I felt jealous today. I felt XYZ. Like some people really struggle with being at home by themselves when their partner's out going on a date.
Yeah.
I think because, again, George and I live together, I have the evening to myself.
Yeah.
So I meditate, medicate, masturbate. That's like primo time for me. Make my own dinner, work on my own schedule. So yeah, it does exist. I haven't really had that problem between myself and George. There is an interesting thing where I'm not sure... I don't really know if he's experienced that much jealousy with me. We have had I think it's sort of in line with jealousy. We did have a really interesting conversation that always sticks out to me, which was when I was dating someone and we would be out clubbing, dancing, whatever, and there would be a lot of sexual energy, and then I would come home and then George and I would have sex. And I thought that was working really well because it was look, I'm going out and doing stuff and then I'm coming home and you reap the benefits of that. He kind of raised at one point, he was just I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that you're kind of getting horny over someone else and then coming home and doing it with me. And so I was that's fair.
Yeah.
I know that the majority of people would not be okay with that. That's fine.
I would struggle with that.
100%. The interesting thing, though, is the way that I view it is if I go out and have a great day with a friend and I come home happy and then I extend that happiness onto him, he loves that. So horniness is just a different version of happiness. So the way I view it is look, at the end of the day, you're reaping the benefits. But if you have a problem with that, then we won't do that. And so that's just one of those slightly harder conversations we had where you really have to see it from the other person's perspective. But nowadays, I think it's easier for him if it's very casual. There's someone who that I had sex with, and then when I came home, George and I had sex afterwards because for me, I'm just the more sex I have, the more sex I want to have. And he was fine with that. And I think because there wasn't feelings involved, it wasn't a problem. I don't know.
Right.
At the end of the day, you just got to kind of see it from their perspective and operate in a way that everyone's happy with.
How would you have anything around how you would... If one person did get really jealous over a situation, do you have a particular way of dealing with that or talking through that, or just kind of going with it and just writing it out and seeing what happens?
You just have to talk through it. And I think if you can have a conversation and then try it again, there's personal responsibility in that, right? You can't topple the entire relationship structure because you if it really gets to the point where you're struggling in every single outing with someone else is causing fights, you really shouldn't be participating. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm just it's the same as you being just use more lube. I'm just talk about everything. Truly, you just need to be able to talk it out and do your research as well. There's a wonderful community out there and we all experience these things. And one of the things I found getting into it, and even still kind of having been in it now for 2 years, I love the forums and groups that I'm in on social media and seeing other people experiencing the same feelings that I experienced. That's incredibly validating. So there's so many resources out there that you can get into to help you understand your own feelings, understand your partner's feelings, understand different ways that you can operate. Yeah, it's vast.
Yeah. Do you have other friends and stuff as well, in your actual friend group that are non-monogamous or open?
I don't think I do, no.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Because I was just thinking, I know that there's always talk about, the community and stuff, and obviously the online community is just as valid for all of that stuff too. But I was just wondering if you actually had any, people that you know to talk to about it.
One of my older siblings, Caitlin, march to the beat of their own drum and do stuff. And so they were in an actual polyamorous relationship. They had 2 girlfriends for a period of time. Yeah. And I saw that, and I think that was a big part of me accepting kind of my interest, because I was just they're able to do it and it seems to work really well. Yeah. They're monogamous now, but, it's something they wanted to do and did for a period of time. And so when George and I talked about opening our relationship, they were the first person I spoke to.
Oh, that's so good to have, though, right?
Yeah. So that's probably the only one that I can think. Yeah. Unless there is someone I know that's open. I'm really sorry that I can't think of you.
Not to throw you under the bus, Tash. List all of your friends right now.
I don't think so. I mean, I know some people who were, but Lillian used to be in a relationship. They're not anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Can we talk about safe sex and like
Yes.
how you stay protected and stuff if both of you are kind of like having sex with other people? So what's the go there? Do you have any like rules around that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
George and I have like few set rules, especially when we started things. Safe sex was one of the two main ones. They were, you can't have sex with people at our house unless there's like permission, like I'm out house sitting for a week, and condoms. So George and I only ever use condoms, and we only ever use condoms with our other partners. That is a very, very hard boundary.
Yeah.
There's also kind of the general expectation within the community that, in general, if you're having safe sex with every new partner, you should be getting tested. Yeah, those are kind of the two main things. You are responsible for yourself, for your partner, but also now an everlasting
community
of other people. Like, you don't know how far it goes.
Yeah.
So safe sex is paramount. And again, it's part of the ethical part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just incredibly important. It's, we've talked a lot about like how to like handle it mentally, but safe sex is incredibly important with this sort of thing. So we only use condoms. And I still and I know that George is good about it, but I still will check in. I'll be like, you're only using condoms with this person, right? And he's like, yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's interesting because cheating in monogamous relationships, cheating on someone is just like, having sex or kissing with someone else. You can still cheat in open relationships. Again, it's a terminology thing, but cheating is essentially breaking any boundaries.
Yeah.
So some people would view, if I were to have sex with someone and not use a condom, that could be viewed as cheating.
Yeah,
and that could be something that was a deal breaker for them.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important.
Yeah, fair enough. I think there are a few reasons that because Jay and I have talked not super seriously about like open relationships and what they would look like for us. But I think one of the big stresses for me would be the safe sex side of
Fair
things.
enough.
I would just be like, I'm a germ freak.
You're both, isn't he a clean freak
and he's
as well?
a clean freak. And so I'm just and that's probably a good thing. That probably means that we'd both be really serious about it. But I'm just like, oh God, what if I got really drunk one night and just did something really fucking stupid and it just caused chaos and ruined, what me and Jay had. And that's just the safe sex thing is a thing that sticks in my head a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess people are good around that, hopefully.
You can't.
When you're in that community, right?
Yes and no. Unfortunately, there's people who are shit people.
Yeah, right.
In every
Just don't
community,
care.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everyone in this community is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, again, people who are like, I've come out as polyamorous and I've had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
That my wife didn't know about. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, there is the bugs.
Yes. They exist.
Yeah, but if it's a barrier protection, if you're having PMV sex, if you're using condoms 100% of the time, then you at least know for yourself that you're being pretty safe.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any tips for people that are considering opening up their relationship in some form of how they should approach that?
Yes. I think if you are approaching it where you haven't discussed it with your partner before and it's quite a scary thing for you, I think number one, doing your research. I'm that person who's always do your research, always read about the theory, but also don't go into the conversation expecting to just launch an open relationship.
Yeah.
We had multiple conversations over the portion of it, an entire year.
Yeah, okay.
So I just think, similar to the advice we kind of have learnt over the course of ticking off our bucket list, go into it from a theory perspective, just being open-minded and having a hypothetical conversation. And then if there is kind of the capacity and the interest, then kind of proceed from there. But I think in my head, having multiple conversations and leaving a week or a month in between those to ruminate independently is really important.
Yeah.
Ask yourself if your relationship is stable enough.
Yeah, true.
If you trust your partner. If there is not 100% trust, it's not going to work. It just isn't.
Yeah.
So that's one. And in between those conversations as well, understanding what your boundaries are, what you need to feel secure in the relationship, and bring those to the table. And when your partner comes to the table with different boundaries, having empathy for that and understanding that. And there is some negotiation involved, but at the end of the day, once you kind of set that structure, it is your job to stick to it.
Yeah.
Those are the rules that you've set. And you can move those in a month or 2 months or a year when you have a check-in if it feels outdated. Like I said, we said no having sex at the house, but then, sometimes I go house sitting. So George has had someone over before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just you really have to have an open mind. This actually just does make me think Polyam Poppy, who is the person that we did want to have on the show, she posted something today and it was like about ethical non-monogamy, and she was like, typically people who are polyamorous are neurodivergent and love board games. And I was like, yeah, neurodivergence is like very prevalent. There's like a very strong correlation between people who are in open relationships and are also neurodivergent.
No shit.
Yeah. I mean, George definitely is.
Yeah.
There's some whisperings, some theories that I could be on the spectrum. I don't know.
That's actually very true.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the majority of the people I know that have either been non-monogamous or are non-monogamous.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much fucking bang on.
Yeah. So if you're neurodivergent, you're probably set up to success. Yeah.
So what if you're in a relationship, you're in a monogamous relationship, and you or your partner want to be non-monogamous, but you're not interested in that? Do you, in your opinion, are there workarounds to that? Or is that kind of like eventually maybe going to be a game over for people? Because like in my head, I'm like swinging, sex parties, threesomes. These are all things that can happen within what would be, I guess, swinging, not necessarily. But those are kind of things that can exist within like a mainly monogamous relationship.
Yeah,
like
that is
monogamish-ish.
Yes.
What is it called?
Monogamish.
Monogamish. Yeah. Right? And is that monogamy, or is that actually ethical non-monogamy, in your opinion?
I think, well, anything that is not strict monogamy is non-monogamy.
Right. Even threesomes?
Yes. There's a third
true.
person. I mean,
Right, true.
It's just very specific, and it's not an open relationship.
Yeah.
It's just, one area of your relationship where you are open to it. But yeah, I suppose if you're monogamous 99% of the time and then you have one threesome, like you wouldn't be like, yeah, we're ethically monogamous.
Yeah.
It's just like we've participated in it, I suppose, or like practiced it. In terms of like, if one person wants to be open and one other person doesn't, I've heard of, they're called monopoly relationships. And it is a thing that can succeed. Again, it's just like build your own relationship.
Yeah.
Dare to dream. Do what you want to do. So I have heard of relationships where like a woman's gone to her partner and said, I want to open up, and he has no desire to date anyone else, but he is okay with her having other partners. So monopoly, because one of them's monogamous, one of them's polyamorous. And that works for them. And like even within the community, some people are like, I don't think that works. But at the end of the day, it's two consenting adults. If it works for them, it works for them. But
I met a couple in the last weekend.
Yeah.
And they were older than me. I think they'd been together for 30-something years.
Yeah.
And they were having a discussion that I was a part of. We were just talking about non-monogamy. And they said that they've been in an open relationship for basically a lot of that relationship time. And they had never called themselves monopoly, but that was actually the structure that they've kind of figured out. Because she was like, I've, like not often, but I have had sexual experience with other people. And he was like, I actually haven't. Even though we're in an open relationship, I haven't actually stepped outside of it. And I was like, look, this is basically monopoly, right? That one person has felt the need to do that and so wanted to do that, and the other person is allowed to but hasn't. Like they've just said, no, it's not for me.
I have so much respect for that, because I think it's really easy in relationships to view things as tit for tat in any type of relationship structure. Like,
if you do that, I'm going to do that.
Making everything 50-50. And I think, we need to, if you remove all of the relationship structure outside of that, you need to be comfortable with 80-20 sometimes, or 60-40. Like we all have a certain amount of give we have, and it fluctuates. That's what strong relationships do, right? It's not always 50-50. If your partner can only handle 30%, you give them 70%.
Yeah.
And, to expand that into one person like being open and one person not being open, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really cool. But in terms of the original question, if you're someone who kind of goes, I want to open the relationship, and your partner doesn't want to open the relationship and doesn't want to allow you to do that, you have two options. You can end the relationship if your needs and wants are strong enough that you feel the need to explore non-monogamy, and that means that you need to break up because you don't want to put the other person through that.
Yeah.
Or stay together and remain monogamous as long as you are okay with that.
Yeah.
But, we've all got different thoughts and feelings, and it's really hard to kind of predict the ways that things will go. But, that's kind of how it goes. But as I've said multiple times throughout the podcast, doing your research, even if it's just like something you find interesting and you don't even want to reflect that in your own relationship structure, I think the amount of resources out there is so vast, and reading about it, or, you know, there's podcasts, there's forums, there's so many different things that you can listen to that can kind of give you the information you might be seeking before you kind of enter those conversations.
Yeah, cool. Have you heard about the book Polysecure?
Yes, yep. I haven't read it. It's on my list.
Of course.
Polysecure by Jessica Fern.
Yeah.
Yes, that is cited a lot in a lot of the forums I'm in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Polysecure I want to read. But my kind of go-to resources that I've gotten into are podcasts and social media accounts and online groups. So I was originally on kind of like Reddit on r/polyamory and r/ENM. There is a little bit of like toxicity within those groups though, and more recently I've found myself in a Facebook group called Ethical Non-Monogamy, so just ethical non-monogamy. That group is fantastic. It's really well moderated. Cool. There's a lot of grace between the people commenting. There's a lot of really lovely advice. That group I would highly recommend. In terms of podcasts, Multiamory is a really popular one. They've got like 500 episodes or something.
Yeah, they've been around for ages.
Yeah, and they offer advice and talk about all sorts of modern relationships. So monogamous ones as well as everything else. They actually had Emily Nagoski on a recent episode to talk about her new book. And then the other podcast I really like is Where Should We Begin by S.3.
Love.
She's a psychotherapist, and she just, again, it's not just about like open relationships, but it's really raw therapeutic sessions with like all sorts of relationship structures, and that's really, really interesting. And then social media accounts, Polyphilia blog on Instagram is probably the best resource I could offer. Leanne Yao, they also have a Patreon where you can like pay to get extra information about their relationships and XYZ and the kink parties and things they do. But the free content they have on Instagram is like cute TikToks and things like that, but like some genuine advice and information, and anyone can kind of follow it to get an understanding. Polyam Poppy is another one, a bit more casual. Polyam Fam also on Instagram. He's got some great content. So yeah, those are kind of like the channels that I look to kind of get my information and stuff.
Cool. On Esther Perel, she also has an amazing book, because I'm a big book nerd, as we know. It's called Mating in Captivity. And it's very much around relationship structures and a lot around like intimacy and things like that too. So it's very cool. It's probably a little bit more targeted, I think, at people that are in monogamous relationships, but it definitely talks about like other structures and why monogamy may not work for you, and so on. It's really cool. So
she's fantastic.
Oh, she's
like,
incredible.
Listening to the podcast, she's incredible.
And her voice just soothes myself.
She's got a
I listen
voice.
to it when I fall asleep. Because I'm just like,
Really?
she just sends me right off. Love it.
She's got
not in a
a
boring way, just in a
lovely voice.
soothing, lowering the cortisol levels in my body way.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, it is good. I do highly recommend it. Tash, you're such an angel. I'm doing like the actual sign off as though you're not the co-host today, like a proper interview. Thank you so much for joining me on the Electric Rodeo. But for real, that was very cool. You're very good at talking about this.
Am I?
Yeah, you
I
actually
feel very jumbled, I can't lie.
You're not at all. You're very articulate. That was like, I don't know why, beyond my expectations.
Really?
Of you, almost. Yeah.
I just feel like because I listen to these podcasts and stuff, I really look up to the people who actually, like, as their jobs, offer information on this stuff. So if I have
you realise this is your job and you just offered up information on the stuff.
Yes,
so.
but not as a... Okay. Yeah, maybe I'm...
Don't take it back. Don't talk down to yourself.
Maybe I'm that bitch. Who knows?
She is that bitch, babes. Okay. This is the second to last episode of season 3. So we are going to be in your ear holes next week just with our final wrap up, because as you know, there are a few things that aren't yet ticked off those lists.
Yes.
Or maybe they are and maybe we just haven't told you yet. Hey.
No, yeah, we've left a lot of little juicy tidbits for the last episode. We've both got like 3 things on our list that we haven't ticked off. And spoiler alert, you're getting at least 4 ticks, I think, maybe 5 between the two of us. So definitely tune in for that. And we're very sad, but we're also very excited.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
In your ears.
In your ear holes.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Electric Rodeo podcast by Adult Toy Megastore.
Follow Electric Rodeo free on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And to keep up to date with our bucket list progress, follow at Electric Rodeo Podcast on Instagram.